You're listening to the MSPoweruser podcast. This is the podcast for the Microsoft enthusiast and power user. We discuss the latest news from MSPoweruser.com about Microsoft, Windows, Surface, Xbox, all that fun stuff. My name is Vernon E.L. Smith, and I'm joined as usual by Andy Bennett. Hi, Andy.
Hey. So, how's your week going?
My week is crazy. We did not get to move into a new house like we had hoped to, and that kind of sucked. But that's wasn't anything our fault, and it's still happening. Okay, it isn't dead in the water. It's just delayed. But my drive home from picking up my children was quite a bit different than my drive to pick up my children. We finally got winter here. And it hit pretty hard, and that's fine. You know, it's a challenge, and I enjoy a challenge, and it's fun to go brave the elements and all that. But I was driving to my mother's, going about 80 miles an hour on the freeway, and driving back, I was going about 40. And and to make matters worse, as soon as I left my mom's, the low tire pressure gauge came on. I'm like, what? Really? On my vehicle, obviously. And I'm like, all right. So I get out, and of course it's blizzarding, snowing, splatting
this
wet.
Is the point where your engine catches on fire.
It's not over yet. It's not that bad. I'm like, oh crap. So I get out and I just kick the tires. Okay, I'm fine. So I'm driving down the gravel road, and I'm like it's like boggy, where you're kind of sliding around more than you should, and be like, oh man, maybe I didn't kick the tires hard enough. Maybe I am pretty low. So I get to the end of the gravel road and get onto the tar, and I get out, and I gotta say, the flashlight on my Lumia 950 is really, really good. I really, really like that. And so I used that. I got the tire pressure gauge, and I checked, and it weren't bad. It was like 28 pounds, just under just into the threshold of low pressure. All right. So I made it 20 miles to the nearest town, aired up the tires, and I had my son help me. Actually, he loved that. That was like the highlight of his 4-year-old life so far, is that he got to unscrew the caps and then put them back on. Aired up the tires, no problem. Got fuel, headed off, and promptly just about hit a deer. And so this deer was running out in front of me, and it would have made it past like all easily, but it slipped in the road, wiped out, landed right on its back almost. I was surprised it didn't like break its back, but it jumped up in time and like sidestepped my vehicle as I'm like stomping on the brakes, sliding at it. So that was interesting.
The mental image in my head is like this Hollywood movie that is simultaneously eventful and uneventful. It's like a crap ton of events happening really, really quick, but on a really small scale. It's like it's like die-hard levels of intensity, just with really, really, really low events.
Yeah, I'm making airing up the tires of my vehicle sound much more exciting than it really is.
Hey, listen. That's how you make a script you can sell.
Yeah, I'm really hyping it up, I guess. But the rest of the drive home was pretty uneventful. It just took an hour and a half or so going. 40 miles an hour or something like that. Not too bad. But I delayed poor Andy. Buddy, I'm so sorry. You're like going to bed 6 hours later than normal on a Thursday night. So we are recording this I guess your time, we're recording it Friday morning.
Yep.
And
12:17 a.m.
And I'm sorry.
Hey, no worries. Now,
so
if you had a little more time delay, then you could have had a few more events in there, and you could sell that script a bit more. Like, the bit where the drive just becomes uneventful, that's not going to make it into the final script, all right? We're going to need some diffusing of IED somewhere. Maybe fix an engine.
My son was game for it. He was so excited when he was... I'm not going to get into this. We got to talk about it. I'm sorry.
Right.
Andy, how How has your week been, man?
My week has been pretty good so far. I've been in the process of upgrading all of my equipment, and I've been going from increasing price points. So I just got a brand new keyboard and mouse, both Microsoft made, and I am enjoying them so far. I just set them up earlier today, and I am, just for comparison, I am moving from, for a keyboard, I have been using a generic HP keyboard for the past 8 years, and it has served me well. Still serves me well. It is perfectly fine, but I would actually like having something with some features. So first I thought, okay, I'm going to go get a keyboard with some media keys. Then that became, I believe it's called the Microsoft Wired Keyboard 600. Let me take a quick look here as it
That sounds
opens
right.
up the Mouse and Keyboard Center. Yeah, it's called the Wired Keyboard 600.
I think they only have a couple wired keyboards left.
Yeah, there's only a few. This one is nice, though. It's got not only media keys, it features a calculator key of all things, which you can customize what this does. In fact, you can even customize what some of the media keys do, or caps lock, or the Windows key, or the application key. You can customize all that, which is really, really nice, especially since some of it can become app-specific.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then... Okay, go on.
I prefer a wired keyboard, and yes, I guess technically, there's less latency and whatever. And yeah, they're a little bit cheaper. But, and you don't lose the little USB piece, nub. What is it even called?
It's called, I think it's just called a dongle or receiver.
Perhaps. A dongle needs to be loose and flappy though, doesn't it? It needs to have a wire. I don't know. Whatever the receiver thing.
Maybe it is just receiver.
I prefer wired mostly so my children don't take them away. My little kids, especially like a wired mouse, because they'll just grab anything off the desk and go run with it and play with it. Like if they see me working, my kids will come out and climb on my lap. Dad, can I help you work? Can I help you work? Like, yes, this is so, productivity has increased dramatically.
See, this is why you need the spinny chair.
I have a spinny chair.
We talked about that before the podcast. I forgot. Context for anyone who missed out on that. We've determined that spinning chairs are for maximum productivity. If you want to be a professional, you get a chair that can spin.
Yes. Now, it can be complicated. You need to reach that next level of skill if you're going to use a spinny chair to maximum result and still be tethered with your headphones. So be careful, folks. Just saying.
But yeah, to just kind of wrap this up so we don't go on too much longer.
Like a cord around your neck, basically. Wrap that up.
Yeah, that couldn't end well.
We're like 8 minutes in. We got to get going.
Yeah. But yeah, to just sum it up, for the mouse, I got the Wireless Mobile Mouse 4000, which is superb. It is, like I said, it's a Microsoft-made mouse. It's this very nice, just nice little wireless mouse that's got a receiver. It's got 2 textured sides, which feel great to hold. It's got this kind of rubbery grip. Fits my hand perfectly, and it has a button on the side, which can be customized for each app you use, but universally it can act as whatever you want, but I have it set as a back button right now.
I love it.
I have no idea how I lived without this, because I've been using really, really cheap wired mice for forever. In fact, the last couple of ones I used have cost me maybe $5 or less. Just for a summary of the amount of quality jump I'm getting here. And I actually got a good deal on this mouse. I checked the Microsoft store and it was being sold for $35. I got it for $17. So that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
All in all, could recommend.
Nice.
Anyways, moving on to the actual show's content.
Let's actually talk about some Microsoft.
I suppose it's time to start off with the app of the week.
Yeah.
Which I wonder if I think Vernon might know this one, as it's an app that's been around for a while. Next Gen Reader. This is a Feedly client for Windows 10 and Windows 8.1, which has been around for a long, long time, and it's excellent, simply put.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know about this one, Vernon?
I'm quite aware of it. I don't actually use it, and maybe I should, but just, I don't dig that deeply into this kind of thing, maybe as much as I should, like I said. But yeah, Next Gen Reader is it's the top app for content aggregation and consumption and redistribution, I should say. Just yeah, do it. Next Gen Reader. It's it is a UWP app.
Yeah, actually, there is a UWP version I saw in the store when I went to grab the traditional version, because right now, the main version being sold, excuse me, and I believe it's only being sold for like $2. It is a very, very, very nice app, but it is still using the Windows 8.1 type of framework. It is not a UWP app. It is an app with a mobile version and a desktop version, but they are still very much Windows 8 apps, even if they have, like, for example, it has the look and feel of a desktop app, and you can switch it into a Windows 8 tablet mode at any time if you want, which is really nice, but deep down in the framework, it is still a Windows 8 app.
So, Andy, you have a Windows 8.1 device that I would imagine you consume with. Would this not work just perfectly with that?
It does. I just start that up, switching into tablet mode, and have a grand old time with it. And well, a lot of people seem to think that RSS readers are old news or a thing of the past. Next Gen is really what its name says. It is a next generation RSS reader, and I love it. It is a very clean user interface, looks good, and it works well. You just simply link it to your Feedly account, set up some feeds in Feedly if you haven't already, and you are ready to go.
Yeah, RSS, podcasts, Bluetooth, all these things are pretty old technology relatively, or tech, but doesn't mean they're bad, to say the least. And so you can't just discount something because it's older style. Or
I will say though that RSS feeds for a lot of people, myself included, have mostly been overtaken by quick social media, and by quick social media I mean Twitter.
Yeah, but then again, you have to keep up with it. I think RSS is more curatable, definitely, and plenty of reasons for it. So
yeah, and if you would like to suggest another app for App of the Week, we highlight one app here each week. You can send an email to me with my email address being andrew@mspoweruser.com. So if you have any apps you would like to see featured on the show, just go ahead and contact us. We will feature it in each episode, and on each episode's show notes on the website, we will include a link to it in the store.
Right. Yes, do it.
Now it's time to move on to this week's actual news.
Insider builds. This week, 14.971 came out on the Fast Ring, and Andy, you are probably more familiar with this than I am this week.
Yes, this week, it has some really good additions so far. Okay, so the first one on today's notes is that Paint 3D is replacing regular Paint now. Previously, you could download Paint 3D in the store. Regular Paint was still there. Well, regular Paint Win32, whatever you want to call it, its days are numbered. And by numbered, I mean it is going away with the Creator update. And it's as simple as that. Paint 3D, the latest iteration of Paint, has replaced the old version entirely. I'm pretty sure you can do everything you wanted to do with Paint. It's just a new user interface, and it has a focus on the 3D side.
It's really amazing how much they're pushing this. I think it's funny because some people are kind of scoffing at saying it's Paint. Bleh, who cares?
It's Paint in name only.
Yeah, it really is a new app, and it was amazing the demos that they did, that they showed off in New York, and not only like on stage and stuff. If you watch the live event, but also the demos, the on hand demos, and then mixing 3D Paint 3D with Remix 3D, the web version of it, basically. is really
Remix 3D is
fantastic.
as far as I can tell, it's like a distribution center for it.
Yeah, but I mean, you could still. That's tying that stuff together, allowing you to do different things with it. A lot of it is, yeah, it's web based as well, and there's different ways to follow. What's a good term here? Collections, or kind of like Pinterest in a really weird way. Really, not really like Pinterest, but I can't describe it better than that, I guess. Um, it's worth checking out. Remix 3D and of course Paint 3D preview.
Yeah, and it's now built into Windows, so you don't have to go search around the Windows Store. You just go to open your Start menu, type in Paint, and you're going to get it.
This is just with fast ring though, right?
This is just with the fast ring build right now. However, the slow ring build that we're going to talk about in a little bit does have access to it as well. You're just going to have to download it through the Windows Store, which isn't a big deal, let's be honest here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the other big features or changes is that you can now read EPUB books in Microsoft Edge. This is a file for, well, distributing ebooks, and you can grab plenty of them from places like Project Gutenberg. And this continues Microsoft Edge's position as, well, it's the PDF reader in Windows 10. And it only makes sense that as more and more book types get added to it, it becomes, the reader. And I think this might be one of the first browsers to have EPUB support, but do not quote me on that. I don't believe Firefox has support for it, at least. I'm not sure about Chrome, however.
I do not have an opinion or insight on that.
Yeah, I am not someone who will end up dealing with their ebooks through an EPUB format. However, I do think that it is interesting if Edge is one of the first to do this, because previously, making Edge into a PDF reader was just what Chrome and Firefox already did, i.e. lacked that. So it was just like, oh, okay, they're just playing catch-up. But if this is something that they're ahead of, let me see here. Yeah, I don't think... No, it does not appear that EPUB support is built into Firefox, at least. And it does also not appear to be built into Chrome, at least. Okay. So yeah, as far as I can tell, Edge does seem to be the very first browser with EPUB support, and it's got a specialized user interface for it where you can flip through pages and customize the way you're reading them, and I really do like that quite a bit. I think it's where a little will go a long way for the people who are using these files.
Okay. I'm scrolling through the what's fixed, and I love this one.
I think we should just go through the last two on the what's new first, then we can get to reading some of the what's fixed.
Okay, I didn't know if they were they were of value to you, but
the other two big things in what's new is that PowerShell now replaces command prompt in a lot of areas, like for example the PowerUser menu, which you can reach by either right-clicking the Start button or pressing the Windows key and the X key at the same time. This is something that has been an option since Windows 8.1, I think it was either Update 1 or Windows 8.1 itself, where this was an option where you could start replacing command prompt with PowerShell, and now that's just on by default. You can open up the Settings app and just disable that. I believe it's under, not Start Settings, but it's in a similar area. You can go around there and find it. Command prompt isn't going away, but its focus is definitely diminishing. And I don't know if I can blame you can't really blame anyone for that, seeing how PowerShell is, well, it's significantly more powerful. And it's also celebrating its 10th anniversary, which is nice. And finally, when it comes to new stuff, the Get Office app is now becoming something you will actually want to open. It has now reached Get Office 2.0, which is in beta right now, and is included with build 14971. It's becoming an Office hub, which is something that I believe was leaked previously. A concept art of it came out, and it's a nice feature where you have all your Office-related stuff right in one section. If you want to view your recently viewed documents, open up Office, or just, look at your subscription data, you should be able to find it here, which is pretty nice. And now we move on to an area where Vernon is gaining loads of expertise by reading while I talk. What's fixed?
Well, I was as far as the Office beta though, or Get Office, I should say. Basically, it's just kind of borrowing or building on Outlook.com. Any of the Office Online things, all of those have the scroll over or the click where you have all your Office stuff, all your Microsoft stuff pop up right there. We're seeing that more and more everywhere, and they're even more customizable now, and I love that about it. It's really bringing, it's almost to the point where you could run so much Microsoft stuff, and it's a common theme here, in a non-Microsoft browser, non-Microsoft computing device. You really could, in Chrome, on a Chromebook, you could, or Safari, I should say, on a Mac, you could basically pull up all this Microsoft stuff, and you're living in a Microsoft environment, which of course is what they're all going for. And I love that. And they're making it congruent across all these different platforms or different.
Microsoft's dealing with like a universal ecosystem, I think. And that's not necessarily an app ecosystem like UWP. It's like Microsoft is everywhere. Even if people might not buy into some of Microsoft's platforms, they are likely going to end up working with a Microsoft product in one way or another, and they're going to make that experience as smooth as possible for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing I was going to say is that I love this one here as far as what being fixed, things that are fixed in this build. The cursor will no longer be shown while inking. We believe this makes the experience feel even more like pen on paper. Okay. I'll bite. I guess I'll go with that. But I'm not trying to belittle it, but I just love these little fixes, which are like, really? Okay. Anyway, some other things on here. They've removed the snooze action button in a Microsoft Edge tab, basically for how do I explain this? For an Edge tab where Cortana reminds you about that site to go back to it.
So is that feature now removed?
Yes, it's removed, and they will reevaluate the feature for a future release, they say.
So. Translation, it could come back, but no, don't even think about it happening right now. And
I mean, it could be that it just didn't work that well, and they weren't ready to really. I mean, who knows? Or they got substantial feedback that it was weak.
That a lot of Cortana right now does not work as well as it should.
Yeah,
I like it. Don't get me wrong, but there is so much where it could be done better. And I do wonder if they're going to tie it into something other than Cortana. Actually, looking at how messaging everywhere turned out, maybe they're going to maybe. I don't think it'll happen, but maybe they're just looking for ways to tie it into Skype.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Okay. The silence wasn't quite what I expected there. I was going for more applause and laughter, but whatever.
Skype is it's the trash bin and the catch-all, and it gets the. I'm trying to go for a butcher's analogy here. It gets just the scraps. I don't know.
It's the scraps, trimmings, but I'm not gonna lie. With the UWP change up, Skype is getting significantly nicer by the day, and I really, really, really do think that some of the stuff they threw into it is actually starting to work out now, in my opinion. So even if I still will crack a few jokes here and there at its expense, I do like what it's becoming. It's starting to feel very premium, especially with the UWP app, and I like it.
I'm not having reliability issues with it. I just have it a little bit slower than I expect occasionally, but I never have it fail. I never have things break, just warp a little bit, if that makes any sense.
I've yet to have a single crash with the UWP app, which I think speaks miles about its reliability.
Yeah. The rest of these fixes in here seem pretty blah. For example, fixed an issue where preferred start menu width might not be preserved after rebooting. And these are exactly the type of things that they're trying to sort out. But the fact that they're listing this as a fix means that they're not that bad in this round, or they're missing really big ones,
or they're being really, really complete with how they list stuff.
Yeah,
which I like. I remember some of the early Windows Insider releases. They mentioned this build has over 6,000 changes, and it's like, okay, what did you change? And now they're actually telling us that, which I do like. Even if it's little stuff, having a complete changelog is something I greatly appreciate. Because you get to think, okay, I had that little annoying issue. Is it still there? Oh, no, it's not, because I'm going to go on the fast ring.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of that, as far as what's broken, for an example here is that using the keyboard monitor hotkeys to adjust brightness are not necessarily working as expected. And again, I mean, you're living on the living in the fast lane, on the fast ring life, or whatever you want to call it. You can live through this.
Yeah, and it's not really a bad round of bugs, I don't think.
No.
And so I think we're at an area where you can definitely join into the fast ring, but will you want to? Because the draws right now, you've got Paint 3D, you've got EPUB support in Edge, you've got the new Get Office app, which does look pretty good, although its functionality might not be, something you want to change your mind on anything over, I don't know. But there's nice little improvements here and there to the user experience, like you can have the all apps list become something you just click to get to again on the start menu, which that's nice. You open it up and you just have the tile view only, like Continuum. And that I can appreciate that. But
on the other side of it, though, if you're running mobile, for example, you can run slow ring and get a lot of these new-ish features anyway. And we really take that for granted. Maybe we talk about this too much. Maybe we don't talk about it enough. That being insider gives you the latest stuff pretty stinking fast. I mean, think about years ago, you would wait. Well, even now, I guess Android waiting for an update. The new version.
To talk about it, a Windows version of it. For previous Windows betas, you would either have to deal with leaks, or you would have to deal with the official beta releases. There was Beta 1, Beta 2, there was a consumer preview, there was a developer preview, there was a release preview. There wasn't very much, especially look at Windows 8, and I think Windows 8 had more public betas than Windows 7 did. And
I think so, yeah.
It had only 5 or 6 of them, something like that. And although, if we're going to go for a comparison, Windows Vista was quite literally the Insider program, except it was physical disks mailed to people, and it was a limited entry program.
You opened that can of worms. So share with our dear listeners what you've gone through with a not so recent version of Windows, which of course you just mentioned.
Okay, so the other night it was 1 a.m., much like a night tonight. I was bored, unlike a night tonight, and I had a Windows Vista Ultimate CD. And so, to put it one way, I have been running Windows Vista for a good chunk of the past 2 days. And I like it. Of course, I am not using hardware that came out at the time that it came out, so I didn't have to deal with anything. Plus, I was using Surface Pack 2, so it was quite literally just Windows 7 without AeroSnap, but I like it. And, it works fine, and looks nice.
You can't see me, but I'm shaking my head, Andy. It's okay. It's fun to jump ahead and try all the newest stuff, and it's really interesting sometimes to go back and play with the
I wanted
things.
to see what would and what wouldn't work, or if I could even handle using it, because I thought I'd miss stuff like AeroSnap, which I do miss immensely, or if I'd miss the Action Center, which I keep on quiet hours 24/7, so not really missing that. AeroSnap, though, is the one thing I can't live without in Windows. But anyways, back to speaking about builds. You mentioned this, We had beta program. There were beta programs for Vista, which was pretty comprehensive. Yes. Windows 7, much less. Windows 8, oh dear. Although it did have a couple of builds out, I do think it had more than 7. The development of Windows 8 was really locked down. Then Windows 10 comes along, and it is the most open development of Windows ever, and it has been for the past couple of years. And I'm impressed by it, to put it one way. There, where most of the influences based off insider feedback that we could see was in early builds. Like, for example, if it wasn't for insider feedback, I doubt you could remove the Cortana button from the taskbar or the task view button, which I'm really glad that happened. I'm glad they opened it up. But there's just so much that has been changed because of both the feedback and the telemetry they've gotten from it. I'm impressed. And and anyone can just jump in. You don't have to wait for approval. You don't have to get CDs mailed to you. You just get an instant download right there. And although I say instant, it might take up 20 to 24 hours for your change in the rings to be recognized. And speaking of those rings, well, we've mostly been talking about the fast ring these past couple of episodes, as that's the one getting all the love and attention. There is another ring called slow ring.
You picked up on my segue there.
Yeah. And this one is build 14965, which we covered last week. And looking back, okay, I don't think okay, it lets you control monitors with external tablets. That's cool. You can get a virtual trackpad on your screen. So have at it, slow ring users. Mm-hmm. You can also gain access to Paint 3D for what I believe is the first time. I'm not sure of the last slow ring build or what it was. But yeah, fast ring usually gets all the fun, but you guys can experience some of what made last week fun too.
So speaking of catching up people who are not on the fast ring, the general release, or which one are we calling it here? 10.586 was pushed.
That's currently long-term service branch, I believe.
I guess I don't remember Windows 10 Mobile even being referred to as long-term service branch.
Yeah. I'm talking about in desktop terms.
Okay,
I would assume the same thing might apply to it if it's still getting updates, but that's the whole story here. So
I think that's probably a good way to think of it, perhaps. But there's really no, obviously, there's no long-term service branch for phone, unless I suppose if it is in enterprise. I don't know. Speculation. Way too much speculation here. But this is, it's now being pushed out to those left behind Windows 10 devices, Windows 10 mobile devices. And mostly just bug fixes and all that, but it's good to see that they're continuing to support this. And it's so funny. This is still only how many months old? Like, it isn't, these phones aren't that old, and we're speaking of them like they're almost dead. Whereas, I mean, look at people running.
It's like, I just want to say that this is like an Android ecosystem here, where you have phones that are just not going to get the latest stuff, like the co-ship Moly.
Yeah, I guess I can't speak to that specifically, but it is nice that they are supporting these, of course. Which it's not unrealistic. It's not that. How do I say this? Just compared to other OSs or other platforms, this is still very, very good. I mean, look at all the stuff that is not supported in a new version of an iPhone, new iPhone hardware, and
I don't think really iPhones are the best way to go if you're going to talk about lack of device compatibility with updates. But I will say that Android definitely is the area where you're going to talk about that, because you have maybe 20. I don't even know the percentages of the devices running the latest software, but it is getting lower and lower with each and every update that comes out, of course, as there are very, very, very few phones that are going to get the latest everything. And with Windows 10 mobile third-party devices, there aren't very many third-party devices, so of course the majority are going to be supported, but those sad few devices that aren't, well, they end up with really sad state, because Windows 10 is in a constant development state, especially for mobile. So if you're going to just have a device and leave it on an old build, which I'm looking at you, Co-Ship, you're really, really, really just not giving that phone an easy giving owners of that phone an easy time, because you essentially have a device that is near death after only a few months.
Well, there's one device that is just at the beginning of its life, and Andy has reviewed that. So make sure you go.
We talked about that last week.
Last
the
week.
Alcatel Idol 4S, which I'm pretty sure is going to be getting updates. In fact, I even got a few while testing it out.
So be sure to go and check out his review again if you have not already. And that thing, of course, running Snapdragon 820, which at the time was the latest Snap available. And now, most recently, Qualcomm did announce their Snapdragon 835, their next gen device, or processor, I should say. And I guess I didn't see any real specifics about it that would make me feel it was so much better than the other.
The number's higher by 15. That means that it is.
I mean, that's a big jump, people. I mean, we went from the Snap 808 to the Snap 810, now to the 20, now 35. I mean, like, we are like almost at a point where we don't need our brains anymore. Just AI can just take over. We're just done. Let's just give up hope, because Snapdragon is just going to rule the war. I mean, 15, an increase by 15.
Just imagine now if they decided to jump up from 835. They decided they wanted to go and be in line with Lumia numbering because why not? And they go from 835 to Snapdragon 950 and the Snapdragon 950 XL. Wait.
It's going to be Snapdragon heads or necks back and forth watching that thing fly by.
It's not just going to be a Snapdragon, it's going to be an actual dragon.
Which snaps.
All right.
All right, Cortana. We like Cortana.
Cortana, something that you can run on your Lumia 950, which is not a dragon or a Snapdragon or anything of the sort.
So Cortana got an update, and it's interesting. There's no app updates in Cortana because it's all on the back end. It's a benefit that it has, where not much of that work is being done on the phone itself. Of course, you need to be connected, but yeah, of course you need to be connected. So there's an update which allows you to create to-do lists on everything, because it's not app specific or platform specific. And so Andy and I were trialing this to a routine of comedy, basically, what we ended up.
Yes.
It does work. It takes a little bit of a few tries, and I don't remember what we ended up that actually worked.
Nothing.
But it was, it did work for me. It only took me about 3 tries to get. I think I asked Cortana to make. I'm trying to use spaces in my words so it doesn't activate, which is so far has succeeded. Asked it to create a list. I think that's what it was. Create a list, and then it said, "Okay, what do you want me to do or create or whatever?" And then from there, you can say this, that, and the other, whatever. It does work, and of course, it goes to your OneNote, and it goes to your default OneNote location. I don't know if I can change where that default is yet, but obviously, you can just pull it up easily from there. Excuse me. This is a good thing. I like it. It isn't groundbreaking, but it shows that they're continuing to follow, add to Cortana, which of course they need to be. There's been some speculation lately about the future of Cortana and what they're really trying to do with it, what's going to happen with it. I have minor concerns, but most of my concerns are because everyone else is so concerned. And I guess I don't know if that's a good enough reason, but it's interesting.
I'm in a case where okay, first to talk about the functionality of the feature just real quick, because my experience, I ended up with a bunch of blank pages on Cortana itself, nothing in OneNote, and I have a feeling that's because it is currently in the status of rolling out to everybody, since they got all these people using it. I don't think everything is going to work instantly for
How
everybody.
many
It takes
people do you
time.
think are using this, Andy? This
It's
new
enough.
feature.
It's enough that Bing's usage has skyrocketed since the launch of Windows 10.
Well,
So
okay,
Cortana,
yes, yes,
in
yes.
general, which of course they're not just going to roll it out as soon as you say, excuse me, they're just going to roll it out as soon as you say, hey Cortana, give me a list or make me a shopping list, etc., etc. It's not just going to start rolling in as soon as you say that. It's got to roll out to each and every single Windows 10 user, one by one, day by day. So that might explain some of it, I think.
And not necessarily Windows 10 users either, Android and iOS.
That too.
So it's all, but it's still the same service. It's Bing /
Yeah.
Cortana, whatever. So,
but anyways, yeah, back to Cortana's future. I'm not going to say that it's got a negative future ahead of it, because the only way it can go is up, and that is the worst thing I can say about it at the moment. Because Cortana is a very, very, very good thing for what it is at times. However, it's also like just about every other personal assistant out there. Like, for example, I feel the same way about Siri, and I feel the same way about Google Assistant or Google Now or whatever on earth they're going to finally name it. Assistants are too early. They are not responsive enough. They cannot respond as if they are human enough. And they have far too much latency often for me to even make any use of them. And this is just what happens for me with all of them. I have not had any good experiences with Siri. I've had some good experiences with Cortana, mostly in the early days, and I don't know if it was just more responsive with fewer people using it or what. But just lately, things have not been working out well for me with it. Although, as a core feature, it is still very good at times. Like, if you're going to ask it basic questions, or if you're going to do basic searches or basic calculations, like, for example, you could use Cortana as a calculator in Windows 10, and right on the fly do that, and I love that, and I love that type of stuff. But more complex things, where it has to actually pull information from Bing, it keeps failing for me. And so that's where my worries about it come in. My worries are it going to get any better? Well, the only way it can go is better. Because if it could, I don't think it could get worse with the way Microsoft is working on it. I don't know. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean they are definitely not breaking it.
Yeah.
That's basically what I mean.
I think if and when, I feel Microsoft will eventually have some type of Cortana kitchen device. I think with the Surface line, everyone, they're making a point to redefine the category. Whatever they do, they need to do it incredibly well. Whereas with Cortana and Xbox and whatever, they're kind of just maintaining parity, feature parity, in some cases catching up. And I think that does need to happen with this, keep calling it the kitchen device, competing with, well, it's what we thought was going to happen, be announced with the Surface Studio alongside it. And of course it wasn't. But having something like that where you could just say, hey, play some great music, or what's the weather going to be like? And it could, instead of just reading off a list of what it is, it could tune into, I'll just call it internet radio of some kind. Okay, here is an audio readout, whatever, like a little micro podcast of what the weather is like that day.
What I will say is that the biggest way, if it's handled by the Surface team, I know exactly how this is going to play out. And this is the most revolutionary way for it that I can think of, as opposed to just a regular assistant where you have a gigantic speaker respond to you. Instead, it's just going to be a piece of paper with Panos Panay's phone number on it. You are going to call him, and you're going to ask him, hey, Panos, how's the weather? And he's going to look it up, and he's going to tell you the weather for each area, and he's going to have to juggle quite a few calls at once. But I think it is going to be the most responsive Home Assistant out there because you are removing the biggest issue with it.
Well,
Sometimes the worst part about a computer can be the computer.
that's fair. I just think that if this is a true kitchen device, that it should behave in a manner that people are more familiar with in a kitchen. And like set a timer. Well, that's simple. Or play some music.
And
or
you mentioned using it in a kitchen. That would be interesting. If it ties into the to-do list function, which again doesn't seem to be working on doesn't seem to be firing on all gears at the moment. Which, hey, to be fair, I'm not either. But it can also link with Wunderlist, meaning that, which Microsoft bought them and is yet to do too much with them, but little steps like this are what they need. Anyways, let's say, for example, you have Wunderlist on your phone, you set up a list on Wunderlist, and then you tell Cortana, home device, whatever it's going to be called, hey, read list A to me. That's where I could see that stuff tying together.
Well, I think eventually, because think of it this way, I sometimes, occasionally, a few times a year, I will just order our food, our grocery list online, and have them go pick it out and bring it and deliver it, because I don't want to deal with that. I don't do it too often, but it isn't unrealistic. It doesn't cost any more, and it actually saves us money because then we deliberately get what we want instead of like, oh, that looks good. Oh, that looks good, And it would not take much to tie this service into something that does that. There are already services, like around here, there's something called Food Guys, and they will go to whatever store you want and just get your food and bring it to you. And we can have these virtual hubs, a service that will do that for us. It just ties into whatever virtual assistant or something. It's not far-fetched. You can say, Cortana, I want this, and this from the store. Make the order. That is not unrealistic, and it is not very far away, I think. If that's something that I think people would use that. I do.
What Cortana runs off Bing, which is a always evolving service. They've been working on a lot of stuff over the past year and a half or so, like, for example, the video search, which has been excellent. Additions to the stuff you pick up in searches like lyrics being added, etc., which they did before Google, by the way.
Yeah.
And the latest one is a feature that lets you bookmark search results, which I'll let Vernon talk about.
Well, yeah, this actually popped up. I saw it getting rolled out right away. I guess last week is when I saw it show up. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And it really is just, well, what it's called, a bookmarks your search results to be able to go back and check in on them. And I haven't actually used it too much yet, but I just like that Bing is still leading the way in a lot of things. Yeah, the argument can still be made that Google may be getting better search results. I hear that from a lot of people. I'm not experiencing that myself. I don't actually use Google.
I have yet to experience getting better results from Google than Bing. I get just about equal stuff for everything. So maybe there's some niche stuff where you will find better results on Google. But when it comes to finding what I'm looking for, I get it just the same on both of them. I think it all really comes down to what user interface do you prefer, and do you like getting gift cards with Bing Rewards or not?
That's the huge part for me, because I like that new picture every week or every day. That's interesting. Sometimes they're interactive, or like a little mini video type of thing. You've got your customized news along the bottom. I mean, obviously Microsoft Rewards points and everything. I have all my like Office Online, Outlook.com right at the top there. I actually go there through Bing occasionally. I can jump right to my Microsoft settings from a lot. I mean, this is the hub. This is my Microsoft hub on the web.
Yeah.
I am very happy.
I find it amazing that it's better than MSN is right now at being your Microsoft hub on the web.
And I would use this page even if it was not a search it wasn't search results. I mean, I go to a website by starting to type and then arrowing down and hitting enter. Like that that works just fine for me. It is my default new tab. Bing.com. I'm very happy with it.
And
Maybe
I
I'm
did,
getting
about the saving, search results as like bookmarks. I do find it kind of nice since this is kind of bringing some consistency between both, I believe, video and image search as well, because it's been possible to save image results and I believe video results as well. But again, don't quote me on that. You've been able to save image results under a favorites folder since, boy, it's been at least 2 years. So this is just, bringing a bit more feature parity between all the different search sections. And I hope it gets applied to stuff like news as well, because, I like clipping things. Reading lists are something that I like quite a bit. I like OneNote. And so being able to just clip things here and there, just like snip, snap, just click a button, there it goes, it's saved. That's nice to have for me, at least.
Mm-hmm. I like how it just integrates all together. And this can all, integration within an ecosystem is not exclusive to Microsoft, obviously. Google does this. They try to tie you in. That is the point. And obviously Microsoft's trying to tie you in too. And providing value with it, not making it inconvenient to leave. I mean, I'd rather be led positively than pushed negatively, if that makes any sense. So, again, to summarize what I've been summarizing, I like Bing. Bing is fine.
Now, something else that some people like, and a lot of people don't, but regardless, Visual Studio. Visual Studio is usually what you are going to go for if you are developing apps for Windows, be they Win32 or Universal or whatever. And now it's getting an official Mac release. However, it's not quite the same thing. Microsoft has officially announced Visual Studio for Mac. This is not quite the same thing, like I already said, but whatever. Anyways, it is more of Xamarin Studio renamed with a different user interface that looks like it's a bit more like Visual Studio. And I think this is something done just for the sake of having a kind of universal name for their apps. Like, okay, why does one platform have Xamarin Studio? Why does another one have Visual Studio when they both have Visual Studio Code as well? Okay, so Microsoft takes that one brand and they make it for that type of product. Just like how they attempt to make Skype their de facto service name for video calling, or, like, for example, Skype for Business replacing Link. That's kind of what I'm thinking about here. And so this is quite literally just that. It is Xamarin Studio with the Visual Studio name tacked on and a few changes as well, but it is still definitely not the same Visual Studio as Windows. It's branding parity rather than app parity. Which, whatever.
And I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
That's okay.
For those who don't know, Microsoft bought Xamarin earlier this year, and it is a service that allows you to port your apps to other platforms easily. Like, for example, if you have an Android app you would like to port to Windows 10 Mobile, or even iOS, Xamarin's what's going to let you do it.
I really think that was one of the most underrated moves, or I should say pieces of news this year, that Microsoft bought Xamarin. I thought it was actually last year, but I could be... It just seems like a while ago.
I think one of us is wrong.
Yeah, I'm certain one of us is wrong. I don't know or really care which of us is wrong, but I mean, it's whatever. Recently they bought Xamarin, and this is such huge. I don't know enough to really explain why. I can't explain why it's such a big deal, but I mean, development is what Microsoft does, and if they can pull all these people together and basically allow people,
the way I saw it was that it was a way to solve the so-called app gap. Is that they previously were working on bridges for each individual platform, like Android Bridge. I don't know if the Android Bridge was quite literally just app emulation and it's dead. The iOS Bridge was a bit more than that. It's going pretty good, I think. I know that they ported Candy Crush to the Windows Store with it and acted like people wanted Candy Crush.
Yay.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
So the point of this though is that Visual Studio on Mac is another big thing that Microsoft has been doing. We keep saying this over and over again. It's just their cross-platform play.
Yeah,
It's just wise, and they're doing great at it. I love it.
Yeah. And something else that's been doing great is the Xbox, which has just celebrated its 15th anniversary.
I think we could say that it's working through adolescence now.
Yep.
And I'd say successfully. It's succeeding at life at this point, but there were some rough years in there.
Oh, definitely. Although it definitely had better rough years than some other products have had.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the Xbox One early year. Yeah, I don't even think it was years. It was year. Even if it got off on the wrong foot, it turned things around pretty quick. But, yeah, 15 years ago, Microsoft released the Xbox along with a plethora of launch titles, including the original Halo, which I love the story behind how they ended up getting Halo and Bungie and bought them, and Steve Jobs was so mad about it because Halo was originally going to be a Macintosh exclusive title, and he was showing them that off at their developer conferences, and then all of a sudden, Microsoft buys out Bungie, they buy Halo, everything is heading to the Xbox as an exclusive, it is not going to seemingly touch Mac ever. Steve Jobs got so mad about that he called up Steve Ballmer and shouted at him for a few hours.
Wow.
I love that story.
That is
especially
interesting.
Some of the stuff about how Microsoft handled buying Bungie. Bungie didn't want to become Microsoft. They wanted to be Bungie, owned by Microsoft, and that's exactly how it happened. Like, for example, they had their own security team, they had their own building, they had their own security passes. If you were a regular Microsoft employee, you would need special permission to go to Bungie. It was not just, we are one Microsoft, it is, we are Microsoft, and we own this company that is not Microsoft.
You know,
it was interesting because that was the way that they managed to actually get the purchase in alongside Bungie's financial struggles at the time, which definitely helped.
I'm interested to know to what extent Skype could have been similar to that. Because it has been.
I don't know.
It's certainly not anymore. We it's becoming much better integrated. But I think for such a long time there was this notion, this idea of keeping it so separate in its own entity, and obviously that's changed. And the same thing could go with LinkedIn. Obviously that isn't final. They've said different things about it'll maintain its singularity. I doubt that. Yeah. But, whatever.
We'll see. Bungie was one of the Microsoft acquisitions that I think everybody can applaud, because we ended up with the Halo franchise, which has gone on for many years.
That's been a big deal, yeah.
Yep. And it's become one of the biggest cultural icons of the 2000s. So,
well, speaking of cultural icons of the 2000s, Bill Gates. Yes, he may not be a cultural icon.
A little more than the 2000s.
Yeah, for quite some time, and maybe less of a cultural icon to some than others. But our outgoing United States President, Barack Obama, has awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom to 21 different individuals. And this time around, Bill Gates was on the list. And basically because just an all-around awesome dude, and
his charitable work specifically was what he got it for.
Well, I was kind of thinking
who got the award for technical related stuff, and I believe it went to Melinda Gates as well, and it was for their foundation and the charitable work they've done, which has been amazing when you think about what Bill Gates has done. Not only was he one of the biggest pioneers when it comes to tech in this country, he then went on and used that fortune to, as far as I know, he basically wiped out polio in some countries.
Well, I've heard that as well. I was thinking more for the comfy gaming chair that he kept exclusively available for Mr. Obama when he would come over to visit. But maybe there's more to it than that. I don't know. Yeah, saving the world and stuff. Yeah,
there's a little more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's about it for this episode. It is 1:12 a.m. and I'm ready to call it quits in multiple ways.
All right, well, let's finish it up. Thanks again for listening, everyone. We do appreciate you listening. You can follow the site on Twitter at MSPoweruser. We are nearing a rather monumental number of followers for those people who actually care about that. Yeah. So add yourself to the list. You should subscribe to the podcast, of course. That way will be in your feed as soon as it's available. Andy does a great job getting this up every Friday. I do a great job.
And Mahidi. I got to give credit where it's due.
Well, I get the credit for delaying the recording of the podcast. So you can send all your congratulations to me for that. Yeah. But make sure you subscribe, all that. If you feel you'd like to interact with us on Twitter, please do so. I am on Twitter at VernonEL. Andy's on Twitter at FusionFan45. Andy, tell them why else they'd want to contact you again.
Oh, yeah, you can contact me by email. Again, Andrew at MSPoweruser.com if you'd like to suggest apps for App of the Week.
Great. Well, it's been another great show. I had a great time. Andy, you better get some sleep, buddy. Have a great week, everyone. Yeah. Later.